Interested in supporting Blue Valley activities and athletics? All In BV offers businesses unique opportunities to get involved. From video boards and static signage at athletic events to elementary car pickup tag sponsorships seen by families every day. Your partnership directly supports Blue Valley students, athletes, and performers while giving your business valuable community visibility. Learn more at bluevalleyk12.org/allinbv.
I love Blue Valley because I feel a lot of support. It's a great community.
We are a people that believe in excellence, that believe in constantly striving for more.
I think that there's a lot of opportunities that I would have never explored on my own, and all of the teachers and staff here at Blue Valley make everything so much easier and more accessible.
Welcome to Blue Valley Unmuted. I'm Dr. Gillian Chapman, Superintendent of Blue Valley Schools, and thanks for joining us today as we talk about screen time. I know this is something that's on the minds of our families as well as our educators. Joining me in today's conversation is Dr. Libby Milkovich, a developmental and behavioral pediatrician at Children's Mercy and a Blue Valley parent. Amy Farthing, Blue Valley Executive Director of School Administration, and Kelly June, Blue Valley's Chief of Academic Services. Today, we are talking about screen time and how families can teach healthy screen habits at home. One of the things that I want to bring up before we get started, I read a statistic recently. People born today, because we're digital natives, 95% of them will spend their entire lives less than 3 feet away from a digitally connected device. Thinking about that, I want to give our listeners a quick overview of Blue Valley's screen time work. Amy and Kelly, could you speak to what prompted the district to begin focusing on screen time and how it ties to student well-being?
I think, first of all, it's just a continuation of the work around just always being focused on the wellness of students. And with screen time becoming more of a national conversation and just conversation with community members and families, I think the Board of Education was wise in making this a goal for this year for us to ensure that we're holding up our side of the bargain when it comes to screen time. Students have 24 hours in their day, and we're part of that. So we're excited to partner with families to ensure that students develop a healthy relationship with screens and are able to leverage them for academic purposes in an appropriate way.
Kelly and I have had the chance to be out and about this year, listening to different patrons and stakeholders and hearing about people's thoughts and opinions, perspectives, desires about this topic. So it's actually been kind of a fun road, if I can be really honest.
It's been great. Lots of people understand the risks and rewards and have helped us kind of try to find a path forward to kind of balance those in the interest of learning and students' well-being.
Dr. Milkovich, from your perspective as a pediatrician, why is screen time an important topic in our society right now? And why is it one that families should pay close attention to?
I think that is a really great topic to think about. When I went to a panel of teens talking about social media, what they were communicating was, it's not social media and my in-person life. I live in both. And so since then, I kind of think about just like the school environment or the home environment, the digital environment can really influence how we interact with each other, our healthy behaviors, how we learn. And it's just so much more complex than just screen time alone. And it's just a part of where we are gaining or developing who we are as a person.
And technology clearly has benefits for learning and connection. But one of the biggest issues facing our society today is how we find that balance, either for ourselves or for our children. There's a lot of concern about addiction and addiction to social media and the harms of social media. So, Dr. Milkovich, how do we approach that conversation in a healthy and realistic way?
I think that's really important to think about it in a realistic way, because often a lot of the communication or the information that we receive can be shaming to parents, making us feel bad about the way that we as parents are engaging with digital media. But actually, it's the way that society is expecting to some degree, like our culture is to engage in digital media to some degree. So kind of taking that back and normalizing how we use digital media is the first step, the way that I handle it with parents, and then taking maybe minor steps and thinking about the family system as a whole and how we can use it in maybe a more beneficial way. For example, something that I talk about is having device-free meal times because that's beneficial in multiple ways. One, we know that family meal times is protective for physical health in children. We know if families are eating together, they're more likely to make healthy meal choices. But then also, I love talking about like the wonderful communication that occurs when you have a family meal time. And you can't really capture that when you do research on it. But there is some wonderful benefits to just staying around the table together. It's a lot easier to say do something as opposed to don't do something too. So that's what I really try to focus on. Like, so saying, oh, don't do screen time in bed, right? Which is something that often pediatricians do say. What can we do instead, right? What are some other things that we could use instead? And that's really great to say, instead of saying just spend more time together as a family, don't do digital media as a family. Maybe what can we do together as a family?
That's an excellent example. And what are some other routines that you recommend to your patients and to your families that might be of value to our listeners today?
Often I hear, so as a developmental pediatrician, I care for kids with ADHD, autism, and intellectual disability, and they are the highest risk for having some of these problematic behaviors around digital media. So having difficulty separating from their devices. So I often talk about what the morning routine looks like and how do we use digital media as a positive reinforcer for behaviors that we want. And that's just kind of tweaking the morning routine. And so instead of having screen time at the beginning of the morning routine, maybe having it at the end. And so if you're able to complete your morning routine at a decent amount of time, then you have, 10 minutes before the school bus comes, then that's a positive, natural, logical consequence that you can use your digital media. So I think it's just kind of tweaking the way that we think about and use digital media. And when I say digital media, I mean all type of internet use. It could be social media, it could be watching TV, and there's all different ways that we can kind of tweak this. Just thinking about it as why we're using it and how do we use it to the best potential that we can possibly use it to, and not just as something else to do.
I think sometimes it's about fear for us. As a parent, I fear that my child is just sitting in front of a TV all day long. When I think back to my youth, I would get in trouble for sitting too close to the TV. And that was the biggest concern. And so then we didn't have remote controls. I'm really dating myself now. And yes, it was a color TV, but a lot of concern as I recall growing up, go outside and play and don't sit in front of a TV. So a lot of concern that that's how we use technology in our schools. And I'm telling you, that is absolutely false. And the concern about students being connected, overly connected at school, or becoming addicted to things at school, that's not how technology is used in our schools. And I'm in the classroom often. Every day I'm in schools, and I have never seen a student inappropriately on a device, instead of interacting with somebody else. It's all a very legitimate, well-balanced use. So, Amy, could you talk a little bit about some of the steps that our schools will be taking next year to encourage healthy digital habits in reflecting some of the comments of Dr. Milkovich?
You said something a minute ago about parents feeling shame about how they have made decisions or judgments about what their kids are doing with screen time at home. I think teachers feel the same. I think initially, especially teachers who've been at this a little while, jumped into technology full feet, both feet all in, because there was I think a notion about like future ready, we've got jump in, we've got to be tech. And so now to some extent kind of pulling back and going, whoa, we need to really think thoughtfully. Let's have a bit more of a balanced approach. So I think what we're hoping we can move forward a little bit next year is a balanced approach. We know there are digital resources that we will use and must use. That's just the platform that's best accommodated on, and we can have accessibility for a lot of our students. There's just so many things that kids need to be able to access in different ways, and that helps their learning. So we know that's still a need and a best practice, but we can also get assessment tools that way. So those are the must do's and the why we would do it. One thing we want to really push on next year is trying to get teachers to think about when they think of a task and an instructional item that they're going to take forward in their classroom, can technology really deepen the understanding? Because if it's not going to, then let's go to an analog option. And I think that that's really going to help teachers hopefully think about doing a little bit more analog, kind of taking things a little, thinking about the amount of analog things they do in their classroom, hopefully increasing. So we're not on screens quite as much.
I would say two things that academic services is working towards next year is one, sending out a message that if you can do it analog and it equals the learning, do it analog. Get out the pen and paper and use those things. It's interesting because so many of our teachers have never taught in an environment that's not a one-to-one. We've also committed to really looking at and dusting off some of our old tricks and getting back into some of those skills that I taught with when I was a teacher. And so our instructional design team is working hard to look at things in our resources that are the analog pieces and making sure that they're finding their way into the classroom too. So
It's very intentional, though. I would
super
say
intentional,
we've
yeah.
got our buildings actually. This is a very deliberate part of their school strategic plans for next year.
Yep.
So it's not just a fly by night. Oh, and if you want
Yes.
to, this is every building is designing pieces of this into their plan next year.
Absolutely. We're kind of bringing it to the forefront where it has always lived in good instructional decisions for teachers, but definitely bringing it to the forefront. So I'm I'm also in classrooms and I talk to kids and they like the analog thing. So we're excited to kind of go there and kind of make this push for extremely balanced, and you almost need to reestablish the permission structure. The analog is not only is it good, it's great.
And I've noticed in some of our secondary classrooms, it's very rare that I see the devices out like in a middle school. Sometimes they're doing some research or that kind of thing and keeping their notes and their results on their device. But in high school, oftentimes I see the teacher giving students choice. And do you want to, if they're taking notes or if they're interacting with something, do you want to do it on your device? Do you want to do it on paper? My student leadership groups, they appreciate when they have the choice because they are starting to learn who they are as a learner. And so I think that makes a difference. We've talked about some ways that we're partnering with teachers and with our students. So, Kelly, can you share some ways that we'll be working to partner with families and and what resources or how will we share resources with families that reinforce healthy screen time habits at home?
Another continuation of Blue Valley's work is just partnering with families. And this seems just like such a great topic to do that with. Dr. Milkovich has been great to give us some new tips and tricks. I'm hoping to continue that relationship as we go here. We are planning next year to share information about what's happening in the schools and be as transparent as we can about the number of minutes and what types of platforms students are on so that families can use that information and make decisions that align to their values and how they want to approach screen time. So we understand that when you drop your kiddo off at school, they walk in the building and you're not sure exactly the amount of time they're on a screen. We're going to try our best to be more open about that and publish things on our website. So that's one thing we're going to do. Also, a continuation, we're going to continue to work with the Blue Valley Educational Foundation, who for a long time has been focused on student wellness and for many years has partnered with BB to give opportunities to families to learn about screen time. I think that's an important partnership to continue to lean into and promote their events. And then, of course, this is just going to be a conversation and in the district next year around screen time. And I'm sure we'll have board advisory committees, PTO, PTA meetings, and all those sorts of opportunities for families to engage with the district in these important decisions.
And I would add on our website, families can always access parentguidance.org. It's a free resource and it's available 24/7, really fantastic suggestions about navigating parenting topics just really covering all the bases. So I would encourage people to check out parentguidance.org. There is a link on our website, or you can just put that into your search browser because we know that sometimes parents have a question or a concern, and it's not happening while Dr. Milkovich is in the office or, during regular business hours. And it seems like when there's something going on in the home, that it almost always happens at odd times. So having that 24/7 resource available, I think is really helpful. Dr. Milkovich, how important is it for adults to model healthy screen habits?
So actually, this is what my research focuses on because kids learn from, like, they do social learning. They learn from their environment, and that's why technology is shaping the way that kids are learning. And part of that is how the adults around them are modeling behaviors. And what we know is that parents with problematic behaviors around digital media are 10 times more likely to have adolescents with problematic media behavior. And so it's a huge predictor of how kids use digital media themselves. But also, what we know is that not only are they modeling these behaviors, but parents that use high digital media or are on their phones during meal times or when the kid is trying to interact with them, that's disrupting the development of the parent-child relationship. So that's something that I really highlight in my clinic office as much as I can is to think about, often parents are in my office because they're wanting what's best for their child. And something that we can control as the adults is maybe our own habits, right? We can't really make our child behave a certain way, even though we might want to. But what we can control our own behaviors and habits. And that is something that we can really think about. Something that I think is a tangible tool that I often recommend is I often partner with Screen Sandy, which is a local nonprofit. And they have this wonderful tool to teach families how to use smartphones in a healthy way. And it's called the driver's ed to cell phones. And so it's really using that same concept as we as the adults are modeling safe behaviors driving. Then they practice, with the adult and next to them. And then they have independence and they drive by themselves. And so we need to take the step of modeling appropriate behaviors. And then also we need to help them practice it instead of just handing them a phone or handing them a school issue device. We need to teach kids how to actually use it and monitor it and then help correct that behavior. And then once they show those skills, then they can have more independence.
And that's exactly how we teach things in school, right? We don't start with write a dissertation.
Right.
We start with the first steps. And some of the things lately that we're hearing a lot about, the legislature is taking it upon themselves to have more of an all or nothing approach. And that sounds like it's counter. I mean, of course, we all want our children to be happy, healthy, not addicted to devices, those kinds of things. But it sounds like from your research, the all or nothing approach is not necessarily the best approach, understanding that devices are going to be a part of our world forever. So, do you have any other comment or recommendations that a parent could take or our legislature could consider?
The way that I think about it is we want a child-centered approach. Like, how do we want our children to be the best adults we can possibly be? What does that look like? And that is at the individual child level. And so some kids need different things, as you guys all know. But we also want them to be independent, right? And so the current environment that we live in is a digital world. And so how do we foster these healthy behaviors around it? And some of those things are practicing behaviors in the home setting. Like, going back to the analogy that I used before, if you didn't let your child drive until they're out of the house and you said, okay, here's some car keys, go drive, that would make me anxious because do they have the skills to do that independently? I don't know. And so thinking about where that child is developmentally and what skills that is appropriate for them to handle, they should be practicing that in a safe way so they can get correction and guidance.
A thing that we're looking to post on our website around screen time is a family digital plan, which is a fantastic tool for families just to start the conversation. That's one thing I've heard from a couple of families. Like, if we had this guidance, just having the conversation is step one in developing a great environment at home that they could partner with schools with.
There's no one way to do digital media. It's individual, it's a family system, it's a social system. And so the family media plan is built to help guide these conversations and not just think about screen time alone. Because I think that's where a lot of the conversation gets confusing is because it's screen time doesn't make you have bad outcomes. It's those problematic behaviors around it, one, or how it's getting in our way of us needing to do what we need to do outside of screen time. And so that's why it's really hard. And we don't, as pediatricians, we don't do like this 2 hours screen time or less because that doesn't make any sense anymore. That was based on TV research. And so having these kind of complex conversations are hard to have in the office. And so that's why the American Academy of Pediatrics created this tool to help families do this conversation at home.
Yeah. We have smart families, and just given a little bit of help, a tool, I'm sure it'll result in good things for kids. That's a connection just with the learning side that you're talking about. Like when we were studying this a lot last summer, actually, we there is no absolute X number of minutes in classrooms are best.
Exactly.
What the research came to say essentially is that it's what you're doing on the device that makes all the difference in the world. And that's why our guidance to teachers and our professional learning and our support for teachers and learning is going to be guided towards those uses that are most beneficial and away from uses that are less beneficial or just passive consumption of media on devices. So I find a lot of connections between our work.
Exactly.
And I think even our motivation is the same. It's to make great decisions for kids when we have them, and whether it's at home or in the classroom. I mean, I feel like we're somewhat in a parenting mode with this, and making sure our kids are healthy and they develop the skills, and they leave Blue Valley also with the skills to take advantage of that digital future they're going to inhabit.
Right. And when you were mentioning it earlier, I so much resonated with what you're saying. And it's these complex conversations that we have to have. Like, what is better than analog? Is it better? There's a lot of subjectivity to this. And is it better for all children, or is it just better for this developmental age or this individual child?
It's nuanced.
It's nuanced. And so having these complex conversations in a room, trying to understand the whole family culture, and for you guys, the classroom or the school culture, it's really, really hard. And so that's why it's really important to continue to have these conversations as we're learning more and more, because I'm trying to do the exact same thing that you guys are doing, trying to help families figure out, like, is this a beneficial time to be practicing some digital media skills? Or, are we gaining something from this digital media use? Or could we be doing something else that's maybe more beneficial? Or is this creating harm?
Right.
So, Dr. Milkovich, what might be some signs that screen use or social media may be negatively impacting a child's mental health or well-being? So when should a parent reach out to you?
So I use the word problematic internet use, and there's no clear definition or diagnosis, and that could encompass social media addiction. It could encompass internet addiction. Experts usually try to steer away from the use term of addiction because of the stigma, and really it puts the focus on the individual person and not put a lot of blame on like this sticky design that digital media has in our lives. And so I use problematic internet use, and that is the highest predictor of negative outcomes. So what problematic internet use are excessive risky internet use, and those internet use dependency thoughts and behaviors. So needing to feel constantly connected or feeling anxious when you're away. But then in any of the diagnoses that I see in my room, it's that impairment. How is it getting in our way? So that could be kind of like what you mentioned before when you talked about TV, right? We see eye strain and changes in vision with high use. It could be disruptions in sleep, but it could be more of those subtle things like disruptions in our social connections, or, difficulty engaging in in-person interactions because we have increased social anxiety, or we have difficulty with emotion regulation. So meaning, how do we regulate our emotions around it? Because we are used to, even me, myself, I'm used to that immediate gratification. And so if I'm feeling uncomfortable and my phone's right here, I can grab it and I can calm down. When that's not around, I haven't practiced the skill to self-regulate, right? And so those are a little bit more subtle because you can't really quantify that, but it can be something that's getting in our way.
I actually heard a kindergarten kickoff was a couple of weeks ago,
Mhm.
and I heard a counselor speak to this. She just sharing at one of the sessions, and I'm not going to do it as eloquently as she did, but she was sharing with this group of, they have 5-year-olds, and she was saying one of the things you can do to help get your kids ready is you've had one kid, and you've been able to, when they sought attention or, were for whatever reason, handed them your phone to watch, Bluey or whatever it was, just because they needed something and here you go. And she said, if you can stretch that out, have them talk to you for a minute before you do it, then work on going 2 minutes before you do it. I mean, this is just one idea, but she was trying to say, like, try to get them to go elongated times of social interaction before you go to something that's, more of a self gratification. Again, one example, but
that's
it's
a great
concrete
example. It's a
like,
concrete example of like of how phones, the access to technology can be really great, for some of my
it's
patients.
solving a need, but it's solving
Exactly.
a need that's going to backfire on you.
Right. And I think, again, kind of go back to like, for the general population, right, that's probably a good thing to say. But when I think about when I see one family in my clinic room who might have a child who has, really significant autism spectrum disorder, that needs a lot of support, that child might look different.
For sure.
Right. And so I think that goes back to like that nuanced approach. I think that general recommendation is great. And I think we just have to be sensitive. And that's why the guidelines, the pediatric guidelines, are so nuanced. And so it's really hard to implement.
Absolutely.
Well, it hinges on relationships. And I think in Blue Valley, we do a great job of knowing our kids and being able to design learning experiences, including and not including technology that meets their needs, just like a parent would for their child.
Sometimes it's frustrating, I think, for a parent to hear it's nuanced. So if each of you could leave families with one practical takeaway when it comes to screens and balance, what would it be?
I think I would lean into just have the conversation and be aware. And I think that's the first step is having an approach as a family. We're developing ours in Blue Valley in classrooms, and I would encourage families to begin the conversation, develop approach, and know that there's no one right way. Just start.
Yeah, I guess I would say this is maybe having kids that are a little bit grown and combined with years of being in education. The toothpaste will get out of the tube and you'll wish you'd done things differently. So set some parameters when they're young. For those of you who have young parents or young kids out there, set some parameters and loosen them up as they get older. But to your point, the driving example, like set some guidelines and where phones go, where devices go, how, do those kinds of things and loosen up on as they earn that or as you think that they're ready. But that would be my advice is just don't be afraid just to be in charge of the devices when they're younger.
I think those are all great points. For me, something that I really try to focus on is spending quality family time together, at least 5 minutes without devices. Just practicing that, kind of like you were mentioning before, having, kindergartners practice without devices, but it's also hard for parents to be away from their devices. So if we could do something together as a family daily for 5 minutes, that could have major improvement in family connection and being able to tolerate being away from devices for everybody at home.
And I think talking about it too with your child, as you noticed, as you said earlier, that kids notice everything that we do. So when you're having family time and something pops up, you consciously are saying, I'm putting my phone away. And in putting my phone away, I am feeling a little nervous that I may miss something that's important, or my evening time is so important as a family. My phone is always going to go into silence, in the evenings. And so you're actually explicitly talking about what your boundaries are. I do have one more question. Was it fact that if you sat too close to the TV when I was young, that it was really doing damage? Because if so, I'm going to have a conversation with my parents.
Well, using what we know from technology now, when we have screens up in our faces, we are seeing eye strain and difficulty like refocusing because of it. So it might be true.
This proves mom's always right.
That's a great place to leave it. Moms are always right. Thank you all so much for being here and engaging in an important conversation that I hope gives our families a few practical ideas and reminders that they can use at home. Finding balance with screens looks different for every family, but small, consistent habits can make a big difference over time. Have a great day, Blue Valley.
Want to see what learning looks like in action? Follow Blue Valley Schools on Facebook, Instagram, X, and LinkedIn. From student success stories to behind-the-scene moments, you'll get an inside look at how we are cultivating lifelong learners prepared to navigate their future with purpose. Get connected, stay informed, be inspired.